Okay, this is now the 5 Minute Tarot for the 31st of August 2017, and I want to tell you two things first, and then we'll look at the Seven of Swords. And one is that at thetarotcourse.com, there's an article that I posted yesterday about astrology, and you might enjoy it because it's a comment that it's a reply to a comment that somebody left in the video where I argued in favor of not using astrology with the tarot. The second point is a while ago, actually some years ago, I had this site called yourfreetarotreading.com, and it was a kind of do-it-yourself oracle. So you would pick a number or pick a card and then listen to an audio file, and there were 78 possible answers, one for each card. And there are three types of questions. One is to do with relationships and love, let's say. It doesn't have to be a romantic question, but it's about, if your question is about people, that's one type of question. The other type of question can be about money and work and related matters, so promotion fits in with that. And the third category that I spoke about was a bit like, how do you improve your quality of your life so that you live more fully and live more in harmony with your life purpose, something along those lines. So what I did was I gave answers. With each audio file, I would give an answer, what the card would mean upright and reversed in each of these three different categories. So I closed the site, but I still have the audio files. And so if you already bought the Tarot Home Study course or johnstarotcourse.com, if you already bought it, let me know and I'll send you the audio files as a bonus. And if you haven't already become a member at johnstarotcourse.com, if you become one, I'm going to know. So I'll send you the 78 bonus files, audio files. And we have Robert, or you have Robert to thank for that, because he was the one who asked for MP3s in the first place. Okay, the Seven of Swords. I'm not sure if I'm going to I can't remember who it was who asked for the Seven of Swords, and I may not answer his question directly or her question directly, but I'm going to talk about one way of approaching looking at a card and figuring out what is going on or what it tells you and what it might possibly mean, right? So, Seven of Swords. Let's say you had to design a card with 7 swords in it. How would you arrange the swords? Forget about what's in the one in the rider deck, but if you had to do 7 swords, maybe you do a 4 and a 3. Because 4 and 3 and 7 seem to go together quite easily, quite normally. So you've got a square, 4 is a square, 4 sides, and a square table with a leg at each corner is really stable, right? So 4 can be a number of stability. And 3, because it's a triangle, 3 can be expansion or progress. Because you think of a natural 3 is father, mother, child, right? So you've got the masculine and the feminine, you've got taking action and you've got being receptive, and the two together produce a child. So 3 can be a number of expansion and growth and production of something because of what went before. So the 7 could represent the 3 and the 4. And so it's stability as well as improvement or new growth. Could be what the 7 of Swords represents. However, in the rider deck, we've got 2 stuck in the ground, and they seem quite stable and firm and settled and established. Whereas the fellow walking away or running away or making off has got 5 swords, but even the 5 are divided up into 2 and 3. So, if we look at that 2 of Swords, or the 2 swords stuck in the ground, maybe it reminds us of the 2 of Swords in the suit, where you got the fellow sitting by the sea with crossed swords, and the 2 of Swords can represent the need to pick a path, to choose, to go one way or the other, to make a decision. So because we've got the two swords stuck in the ground and firmly planted, we might think that the seven, in the seven, a decision has been made. The two swords are planted in the ground, and you're now moving into a new situation. So you might think that the future, or what you're moving into, is going to be easy because you made the decision. But I think the fact that we've got two swords in the right hand and three in the other, the two swords in the right hand can remind us or point out to the questioner that, okay, you made a decision, the two swords stuck in the ground, and you think it's going to be straightforward from now on, but it isn't, because the two swords in your right hand are a repetition of the two swords that are stuck in the ground. So you're going to have to make more decisions. It's a bit like the two swords can represent a decision that's been made. But you're going to have to make more decisions in the future. And the three swords in the left hand, the three swords with the heart, with the three swords through it, can be an indication that in the future, you're going to have to make decisions, and there's a possibility of pain and sorrow and disappointment comes with it. So if we look at the person moving away, you're going to have to, if it's the questioner, they're going to have to make more decisions, and they're going to have to learn to live with pain and sorrow and disappointment. So they may think at this point that they've taken a shortcut or they've solved the problem because of the expression on their face. They may think that they've done something good, and maybe they have, but it doesn't end there. And that reminded me of I was out walking earlier, and I was going over what I would talk about, and I was thinking the 3 and the 4 is a 7, but maybe if you're designing the spread or the picture, you would put 7 swords in a circle. And the circle's got no obvious beginning and no obvious end. So you could represent the 7 as being circular, as being a cycle. So you go through it and you come back to the beginning again. Or maybe you would choose to put the 7 swords side by side in a row. So here you've got a beginning and an end. And it's clear what's the beginning and what's the end, but you're maybe not quite sure what direction you're going in, to the left or to the right. So we have 2 swords stuck in the ground. The thing is that all these ideas about 3 and 4 and the straight line in the circle, they may be useful as part of the answer to the question. So you may talk about the number 7 and how it can be arranged, and that can be giving you a clue to how the person ought to handle the situation, or what's going to happen in the future if the 7 of swords comes up for the future. But we've got the 2 swords stuck in the ground, which can represent stability or a decision that's been made. But then maybe what the person did was, I'm thinking of when I was out walking, I thought of the Social Network, where somebody, the person who left a comment about the 7 of swords, wanted to know if it represents theft. And maybe it does, in that you've got, maybe there were 7 swords in the ground, and the person on impulse or on the spur of the moment grabbed 5 of them and is taking off. So from that point of view, it can be theft or taking what doesn't belong to you. But it can also be somebody who thinks this is an easy answer, but it's not really an easy answer. Or maybe they think, I'm going to take a shortcut and this will get me to the end result quicker, but it's not going to work out. And I was thinking of theft can be somebody, the questioner, taking something that doesn't belong to them, or trying to take the easy way out instead of facing the situation and dealing with it head on. But it can also be taking or claiming credit for something that isn't yours actually. And that's a kind of theft as well. And then that made me think of the Social Network, where I forget the name of the twins who in the movie, which is about Facebook and how it began. There were a couple of twins at Harvard who decided or thought that or believed that they were the ones who came up with the idea for Facebook. And Mark Zuckerberg said, no, he was the one who did it. So there's a whole question of who had the idea and when, and who did the idea belong to. And that can be what's represented by the Seven of Swords, that you're in your desire for a quick result, maybe, because the person seems to be running away. You can maybe do things that you wouldn't normally do if you had time to think about it. So the situation that's going on in the Seven of Swords can be somebody who acts impulsively, or they act in a spur of the moment, and maybe they do things on the spur of the moment that they wouldn't normally do if they thought about it, or if they had time to think about it. So maybe what we do with the Seven of Swords is we say to the questioner, if you feel like cutting corners, or taking a shortcut, or doing things quickly and on impulse, probably don't, because it won't work out. This is especially true, I think, if the Seven of Swords is reversed. It definitely won't work out. But even if the Seven of Swords is upright, if you do something impulsively or in the spur of the moment, you may think you've solved the problem because the two swords are in the ground and they're stable. But you're actually taking indecision, the two swords, and sorrow and heartbreak, the three swords, into your future. And you're going to have to make more decisions, and some of them are going to involve pain and heartache. So that's I may come back to this and say more, but I'll leave it up to you to leave some comments. But that's one way of looking at a card, and not starting off with an idea of what it means, but more looking at it and seeing what's there and assessing it and putting, two and two together and getting, in this case, 7. But, it's the difference between the two swords in the hand in the right and the 3 in the left and the 2 upright in the ground, and the contrast between them, because the two swords in the ground are pretty solid and you can rely on them. They're dependable. But the 2 in the hand and the 3 in the left hand, they're a very different story. So different story, it can be that with the 7 of Swords, you've got 2 paths you can travel, or 2 very different situations happening at the same time. On the one hand, there's stability shown by the 2 swords, but at the same time, there is a desire for a quick answer, or a desire to quickly reach the goal, or a desire to not bother thinking about things and to take a chance. And maybe that's what the 7 of Swords represents, is a choice for the questioner. Do you go with what's stable and what you know and what's solid and what's well established, and you can have confidence in it, even though it's maybe a bit dull? Or do you go with the risky side of things and take a chance and keep your fingers crossed that things are going to go your way, even though there's a good chance that they won't, or that it's going to be painful? You're going to have to deal with pain in the future as well. So that's something about the 7 of Swords. And so try that kind of approach where you pick a card and you just sort of think about it and examine it and imagine what it might indicate. You're not looking for meanings particularly. You just want to get a more complete picture, an idea, or get more ideas, plural, about what's going on in the picture and what kind of behavior or activity is shown. Then you've got something you can relate to an answer depending what the question is. Okay, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Okay, it'll be September next time. Okay, bye-bye.